You are listening to Insights from the Conference Board.
Hello, my name is Sanja Haas, and I'm the Human Capital Center leader at the Conference Board in Europe. It's a pleasure to welcome you to this episode of Inspiring People, Inspiring Journeys, a series which is part of our Insights channel brought to you by the Conference Board. In each episode, I sit down with a new C-suite executive, and together we have a conversation about what helped them transition into their current role, tips for navigating this highly complex, demanding career landscape of today, and what would they consider are the key ingredients for success in their role. Today, I will be sitting down with Jean-Luc Fleurial, CHRO at UCB, to discuss his professional journey, which we hope will help our listeners better gain insights into what is needed or not to have a fulfilling business and HR career journey. A very warm welcome to you, Jean-Luc. Hello.
Hello, Sanja. Very nice
Hello.
to talk to you today.
Wonderful to have you on board. I always ask my interviewees the same question, Jean-Luc, so I will start by asking you the same question. And that is, what business are you in? And can you share one insight about your company, which is not common knowledge?
Yeah, thank you. And we are in the business of the biopharma industry, and we are driven to ensure that everyone can live the best life they can, as free as possible from the challenges and uncertainty of disease. And this ambition fuel our purpose. We are a very purposeful company. We want to create value in the lives of the people we serve now and into the future. And our research domain is more span across neurology, immunology, other areas where our expertise align with unmet needs and our science. And maybe what is interesting to see that we have been a company we exist since more than 90 years, and we
Oh.
transform from a chemical plastic type of industry, a bit of pharma, to a full-fledged biopharma innovative company.
Very interesting. Thank you for sharing that. I actually didn't know that, so that's really interesting. And I'd like to come back to the topic of purpose a bit later on. A very important point. But before we do that, I'd like to ask you if you could tell me a bit about your role. You know, what is it like to be a CHRO?
So what's probably quite different to be a CHRO, what it's like to be a CHRO is that it's truly having an enterprise role, and it's really about uh, building as an enterprise leader the right context and environment for the company and the organization and the people to thrive.
Mm. And in terms of that thriving, when you build that organizational environment, can you give us some insights of, you know, what does that mean? How do you make that happen, come alive?
For our company, which is, as you understood, is very driven by the difference that we can make for patients.
Mm,
Uh, we would like to develop the culture where we are differentiating ourselves from the rest of the pack in the pharma industry, and we feel like as the HR leadership team, we feel that developing the right culture, the right
mhm,
context for the company, and which is a bit different
mhm,
than the rest of the pharma industry, is extremely important.
mhm, mhm. Thank you. Again, I'll come back to purpose and culture in a bit. I'm still on the topic of you as CHRO, and I'm very curious to hear if you dial back down memory lane, what were your first 100 days like as a CHRO? You know, were there a couple of things, one, two, three things that dramatically changed compared to your previous role?
So I changed company to as I became a CHRO. That obviously the context is changing, but for the role in itself, I think the main difference between being a senior leader in HR and being a CHRO is that we are really moving from a functional type of expertise to an enterprise leader of a
Mm-hmm.
company. And what is probably the functional part is not taking as much time as you would think it takes when you are not in this type of role. And for me, I was discovering when I took this role in the 100 day that I really had to spend my time in a bit different manner than you have to put it. So I would say my priorities one third on the governance part, the interacting with the board, building the trust with the
Mm.
board. There is one third which is being an enterprise leader, so
Mm-hmm.
having a deep understanding on the business and having an opinion on it. And one third which is leading the HR function, and in my case also corporate communication.
Mm. Um, and this role as CHRO has been mentioned previously in some of my other episodes. Of course, this, especially this point about being that business person, or as you said, the enterprise leader and leading the HR function, is very important, and the governance board role as well, of course, and so clearly you said you moved company and you transitioned into your new role. What helped you transition into, or who helped you transition into that new role?
I think to have some people you can trust, that you have built a long-term relationship
Mm-hmm.
outside of your own role. So I've kept a relation with some people that I've been exposed to through my career, or friends. So to have that as a backup to from time to time step back helped me. But I would say in this transition of a specific role of CHRO, I think for me, having some pure experience in business and having this business appetence
Mm.
really help to build your credibility and your capacity to contribute to the enterprise direction, and also in your interface with the board. I would say that the second thing, which is working in a global company, but to have this experience of living and working in different countries
Yeah.
uh, help also, because that help you to connect the dots and to build your network within a global company in probably a more natural way.
Mm-hmm.
And the third point I would uh, put in place is that during these 100 days, or maybe sometimes longer periods, the capacity and so the help that you can have externally to do a personal reflection, so going deeper into yourself to really understand what drives you and what will drive you, your impact into that role is paramount for me. And that was for me the opportunity also to do that personal reflection, and to connect my personal purpose to the purpose and the impact that I wanted to have in this company.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for sharing those insights. That's very, very helpful for me, definitely, and I'm sure also for our listeners. And you say connecting your personal purpose. Maybe if we go even more down the memory lane, uh, what were some of the key formative milestones during your career that you can share with our listeners? And within that, of course, what were some of the key ingredients for success for you to get to where you are today?
Yeah, I think there are always some milestone that you remember and that
Hmm.
build you as a person, as who you are. I think from a professional standpoint, I started as an engineer.
Hmm.
So and I had quite very fast some significant leadership experience. So being a leader, the first time you're being a leader and learning how to fail and or to be successful as a leader is of course something where it's a fantastic experience when you learn a lot about yourself. So I think that's a big milestone in terms of how you think about your career. For the first time you are in a position of significant leadership, and where people look at you, and you have to learn how to become a better and better leader.
Mm.
Maybe another type of milestone, and I talked a bit about that just before, but working and living in a different country. So
Mhm.
all the type of routine that you have put in place, which were making you successful in one type of culture, when you move in a different country, even if it's the same company, so the culture is different,
Mm.
and things that you were feeling like natural, or where you were successful in behaving in some type of leadership before, could be completely questioned in a different culture. And for me, there was heavy learning there also on
Mhm.
how to learn about my own cultural bias from my own education and my own culture. And maybe the third one I would position, which is always an interesting and key milestone, is that when you change company because you have or you change industry, the
Mm.
fact to have those changes, you have to rebuild your network, you have to rebuild
Mhm.
your credibility, and that's also challenging you, that put you in a uncomfortable position that force you to challenge yourself.
Mhm. Thank you. And you know, definitely all 3 points, but particularly the last two. It's if I were to think about that, it's really about moving out of your comfort zone into a stretch zone, and stretching
Mhm.
yourself. And clearly, if I interpret this correctly, you know, you talk a lot about your personal journey, your personal reflection, and you know, your personal growth, and that is part, I think, part and parcel of what we all have to think about on a continuous basis. So thanks. And I promise I will not do this interview in Swedish. I know you lived in Sweden, and which is, of course, a country very close to heart. Um, but speaking of close to heart, has there been any one person or several people who have inspired and supported you in your professional journey, and how that you would like to share with the listeners?
No, definitely, I think the life and professional life is about meeting people, and
Mm,
being moved by them. And I met in my career some wonderful leaders. And for me, a wonderful leader is a lot about people that are humble
yes.
leaders that have really good listeners, and that really trying to understand deeply the others, and have a true purpose that you can feel, and that they are transparent about, and that's I have had the chance to work with some people like this in my career. But maybe
Hmm.
the more personal one is I had in my career, so working in the pharma industry, I had some exposure sometimes with patients or
Mm,
caregiver, and it's always a critical experience to understand where do people come from, the courage they have, and the hope and the curiosity and the determination that for me has been impressive experience that really gave me some courage and some determination to move
hmm,
forward.
hmm. Thank you. Yeah, that's. I'm sure that was very, very groundbreaking and moving experiences. And in a way, I think I haven't thought of the pharma sector in that way, Jean-Luc. But you just opened my eyes that actually that's something that we cannot experience in other sectors that easily. So that is also a advantage in that purpose area, and linking your, as you said earlier, your own purpose to what it is you want to do. So thank you for sharing that. I was wondering if we just dial a bit to the younger talent coming up the pipeline and to organizations. And I have two-part questions here. One is, what what should or must organizations do to help HR leaders transition to more senior roles, to executive roles in HR? What is it that we can still do to help people transition?
I'm thinking about two things maybe. The first one is, of course, the more you grow into senior position, the more this enterprise understanding is important. So to expose HR leaders to enterprise projects, which doesn't have to be HR projects, but could be contributing to
Mm-hmm,
a business project, and really being exposed and living that project deeply
mm-hmm,
at an enterprise level, I think is excellent in terms of building these enterprise skills and challenge the the fundamentals of who we are as professionals, thinking that we should restrict ourselves sometimes in an HR field.
yeah.
And maybe the second point uh, I think there is probably the time when you go to the senior executive role in HR to start to reflect on yourself
Mm-hmm,
and to go deeper in your personal development about who you are, about why you are who you are, and really trying to understand what drives you. Because what I find that often where people, of course, that go to these uh, big position, they have the
mm,
ambition. So often, what drives people is the ambition to go from one role to a bigger role.
mm-hmm,
And when you arrive at these roles, at C-suite type of role, there's no a lot of other roles behind that. So your drives cannot be the ambition.
mm,
The drive should be the impact you want to have,
mm-hmm,
and how is it aligned with yourself.
mm-hmm.
And I think the more you start this journey, not too far, so probably just before taking some SVP or senior executive HR role, I think that the right moment to do this, because that's what we're looking for in this type of CHRO positions.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm just thinking you already preempted my second question, because this was a great tip of do's and don'ts. And the whole reflection part is so, so important. But is there anything else you would like to, any advice you would like to share with our younger listeners, younger talent coming up the HR pipeline? What to think about as they think about their careers?
I think encouraging people to have a business experience,
Mm-hmm.
and it's always easier when it's not when we are not too senior, because it's easier to do a marketing, finance, financial sale experience when you are more junior in your career. But to have that type of experience, and to that will help the person really in his her career, because the understanding of the business is the only way to be specifically relevant when you bring your insight, because you can have people inside, but if they are not put into the right context of the business, it
Mm-hmm.
is not helpful. So I really would encourage people to have those type of business experience in their career, even if it's could be in parallel of their HR role. But I would encourage people to do that.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And it reminds me, I just had a very good session this week with some senior, very, very senior HRBPs, and we were talking about, the role of HR. And what you just said resonates because one person said it is not. We are not here to enable the business. We are the business. And I
Hmm.
think if we start having that mindset,
Exactly, exactly.
early on in our careers, it helps, I guess. So, on that note, how do you envisage the future of our function? What are some strengths and opportunities you see for HR as a whole if we look, 5 to 10 years down the road?
Yeah, and maybe I would. I have a personal view that I did not like too much the way HR has been evolving
Hmm.
on on the past 20 years, which was a lot about let's create some efficiency, some centers, and let's try to have to reserve organization development support, coaching support to just the top senior people within the company, and the rest is more HR services. For me, I really feel like the
Yeah.
difference for companies is about their people, and
Hmm.
I see the right investment on the people to perform at their peak, to have the organization working smoothly, using the resource in an agile way, and being more than just the sum of the people is just the unique differentiation that you can put, because
Hmm.
I'm sure this is the same in all industry, but it's very easy to copy the
Hmm.
technology. So the technology will be more and more and we see that in digital a lot. A lot is a commodity. So I think we need to leverage technology in HR, and we need to
Hmm.
continue to do that, but in a way that brings insights that make us more competent to drive the culture, drive the organization into performance. And that means that you need to have the right amount of capability into the HR function in order to make that difference. And I feel that sometimes it has been in the past year, among like trying looking at the HR function as a cost, when we look at the
Hmm.
impact that we can have, and that we are recognizing the HR function more and more for having that impact.
Hmm.
I see that we need to invest on driving more insight to the table, people, organization insights that are really linked to the business context we are in. We need to have people that are able to develop the right leaders and attract the right leaders within the company.
Hmm.
And I feel that the future of HR will be more and more in our capacity to make people and culture differentiators for a company.
Hmm. I love that. Music to my ears. And I'm sure to our listeners as well, Jean-Luc. And do you think so? Fast forward, will we see more CEOs coming out of the HR line when we have, this capacity, this capability? Um, how do you see that?
No, when you make the link with what I was saying, is that you read my mind, in that I feel that there will be more than what
Mhm.
we've seen in the past, and I feel because I feel like if we continue to develop HR leaders that have a great business acumen, and that are fundamentally driving the people and culture as a
Mm.
differentiator. When you are in this CEO position, of course, understanding the business is super important. The finance is super important, but what makes the difference at the end is the capacity to put the right dynamic into an organization, driving the right capability and the right culture. So
Mhm.
I hope, and I am sure there will be more HR leaders becoming CEO in the future.
I'm convinced. I'm convinced of that. Thank you, Jean-Luc. We are coming this went so fast, very quickly to the end of our podcast. You did mention purpose at the start of this podcast. Is there any final thoughts or anything else you would like to expand on that topic, or any other areas to share with our listeners?
No. For me, maybe my purpose when I reflected on it, and when I came back to what has driven me from when I was a kid to when I grew up in my life. There's a lot about the unfairness and the polarization in the world. People are not listening to each other and confronting their bias. And unfortunately, with what we see in the world, there's a lot about this increased polarization when you see people not understanding, listening to each other, and I feel that the companies we have the accountability uh, to fight against this polarization and create the context where people understand each other, listen each other, respect their differences. And I feel like as a CHRO, we have a fantastic opportunity to contribute to the world with this.
Wonderful. What wonderful thoughts. Thank you so much for a very insightful and interesting discussion, for sharing with us your personal thoughts. I learned a lot today, and I'm sure it helped the audience a lot as they think about their own journeys and their own current and future careers. Thank you so much, Jean-Luc.
Thank you, Sanja.
Thank you. And thank you to our audience who tuned in for this podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please remember to subscribe to our Inspiring People, Inspiring Journeys podcast series as part of the Insights channel, or explore the entire catalog and podcast programming from the Conference Board by visiting our website.
This has been Insights from the Conference Board.